Step by step, step by step, step by step.
Do you live? Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I love seeing where everybody's from, dropping in the chat. We've got a really great session tonight talking about this legislative wrap up and the things going on in public ed. If you're joining us because you're curious about these public ed issues, we are statewide organizing for community empowerment. We're a 50-year-old organization that's rooted in grassroots, member-driven organizing. And we've recently started this public ed issue committee where we've been working across the state on different issues with public education. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from different community leaders. We're going to be hearing from school board member Jennifer Owen. We're also going to be hearing from Representative Gloria Johnson about things that happened in this legislative cycle and kind of what to expect in the work ahead. So really appreciative for folks who are going to be talking tonight and for all of y'all for showing up. I'm going to pass it over to Lance McCold, who is going to tell us a little bit about why he keeps showing up and kind of grounding us in some hope for this evening.
Thank you, Liv. Yeah, well, I was asked to do this and I've been thinking about it quite a bit. You know, I guess the reason I keep showing up is because this is really important. As I think about the work I do around the schools, I think about the children in the schools and the teachers and the other staff, the custodians, all these people, they are, you know, they are, what happens in the schools or doesn't happen in the schools affects all these people. And actually, it's the more I've done this work, the more I've realized it's much bigger actually. The attack on public education is attack on democracy itself in America. It took the United States most of 100 years to establish a public education system, and now people are steadily trying to tear it down. So that's what keeps me at this. It's important, and I may not be able to do too much, but my little bit adds to all the others. And what keeps me hopeful is all of you, all the people I run into who care about this and who are working on this. That is what is where the hope is, because the only way we stand for democracy is people working together, and we have great people doing it. All the great faces seen here, but you know, the people I work with in Knox County and the people I work with across the state, you know, it's inspiring. And that's what gives me hope. And you know, actually, I would go a little farther beyond hope. I think, you know, gives me confidence. We can do this. It's not just a matter of, oh, well, I hope things turns out right. No, we can succeed when we work together.
Great. Thank you so much, Lance. So now thinking about what has brought him hope, we want to give that question out to you all. So I'm going to pass it over to Allie, who's going to lead us through a breakout session.
Friends, it's so great to see and hear so many people tonight. And just want to piggyback on what Lance is saying. My little person who's in 3rd grade just put on a school play with his schoolmates, and just that idea of working together and creating something beautiful that's more than the sum of its parts. That gives me a lot of hope. So what we're going to do right now is break into small groups, breakout sessions, and just take about 7 or 8 minutes to talk about 2 questions with each other and scribe them on a Jamboard so that we can all see what we're reflecting on. And our 2 questions are, what gave you hope this legislative session, and what just gave you hope this past season? And then kind of building off that, what needs work? Where can we focus our attention? Still being grounded in hope, but what can we look forward to working on together? So we're going to take a moment and I don't know if there's a link to a Jamboard here. Oh, it's in the chat. So you can just follow the link and then the questions will be posted there.
And Allie, we're gonna actually have to slightly shift gears, and this is totally on our end, which is a new Zoom link, and we didn't have the breakout session setting on, it looks like. But we can still do this. So what we're going to shift gears to, I'm going to share screen with the Jamboard. And if folks want to put it in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and answer those questions, Rosa and Anna, can you help put sticky notes on? So I'm going to share my screen. Just adapting. All right. Yeah, so here are those prompts. What gave you hope this session? And what are some items that need our attention?
I'm wondering if people want to share out loud, if you raise your hand, we can call on you to help, or you can drop it in the chat.
All right, we've got some coming through in the chat. And Allie, if you want to choose some of those coming in the chat to vocalize, that'd be great.
So Candace is sharing finding hope in the pushback on the third grade retention law. A lot of people calling out the Tennessee 3. Hey, Gloria. And the organizing going on around that. Several people mentioning again, third grade retention organizing. The power of youth-led organizing and their awareness and involvement. Working with other groups. Seeing educators speak out, and seeing amendments addressing issues, and then just overall awareness that public education is under attack. And beginning to see more feedback about work that needs to happen, like cultivating candidates to run for public office. More awareness of the real effect that charter schools have on local communities. Working on local elections, more important.
Allie, can I share one out loud?
What? I cannot get on here.
Was that you?
Yeah, but I don't know if somebody else is trying to talk or if we just need to mute them.
Right, I've muted everybody, and if you want to speak, just come off mute.
Just wanted to share as an organizer and someone who lives in Clarksville and who participated in a local fight, is just that SOCM is getting to work with so many other community organizations also. So I'm just really hopeful about that, that public ed really is a nonpartisan issue that a lot of people are interested in.
And we are winding down on this section of sharing. If anybody wants to share any last minute items in the chat, but what we're going to do now is just take a moment to reflect. We can look at some of the stickies that were shared on the Jamboard. And what we'll want to do is just each of us write down something in the chat, pull out something that something hopeful or something inspiring. But we're going to share it all at the same time. So type it into the chat, and then we're just going to do a countdown from 3. Well, actually, I'll give people a little more time. We'll do a countdown from 10. And then when we get to 1, we can all share our something hopeful that we picked out from this discussion. So we'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and share.
Woo!
And thanks to Rosa for sharing that fun way of sharing our reflections.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for sharing and reflecting together. And my hope is that as you guys go back into your communities and pods, that you continue this conversation and grounding yourselves in hope in this work ahead. So I'm going to pass it over to Candace, who's going to introduce 2 of our speakers tonight. So take it away, Candace.
Okay, so excited tonight to have 2 sheroes. Some of you already know one of our Tennessee 3 here from Knox County, former SPED teacher in Knox County Schools, legislator. We're so thankful to have her voice and her height in our state house, and also that Gloria Johnson, and also Jennifer Owen, our school board member here in Knox County for District 2, who puts our children first and does her research and is impeccably prepared for each board meeting. I appreciate the detail that both of these women and the time that they put in and make a difference for all of us in the state, and particularly here in Knox County, Jennifer, for our students in our schools. So I think we'll start with Jennifer to hear about her reflections on things past in our legislative session to do with education and things that we might need to be focused on and be ready for next session. Jennifer? Jennifer, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm going to just run through some of the things that have passed, and then when I'm finished, I'll stick a link in the chat so that you can get to 2 things. You'll be able to see just a working copy of the spreadsheet that I've been using throughout the session, and also a link to the Secretary of State site where the public chapters actually are. So all of the things that passed in this last session are not technically laws yet, because once they are signed by the governor, then they go to the Secretary of State and they're given a public chapter number. And if there are any amendments that are added on and all of that, then all that language is added together and they're posted on that site. So some of the things that we know have passed and that we know are laws may not show up there just quite yet, but they will be there soon. So that may be, there may be some discrepancies in what we know has passed and what we see there until those things come up. As best I can figure, they're not quite a month behind. They're about 3 weeks behind. So things that went to the governor about 3 weeks ago are being signed now. That's roughly where it is. So here are some things that passed. We had a change to charter authorizer training. And what that is training for school boards in how to be a quality charter authorizer. Previously, the charter school center approved those trainings. Well, now the charter school center is providing those trainings. So there's a conflict there if they are both providing the training and authorizing the training. And so they are no longer the authorizer. So that's what this law does. It sort of cleans that up so that the State Board of Education will be approving the training. There, for a law passed to add what I call cross-district virtual schools. Basically what it does is if there's a virtual school in a county, that county and a county without a virtual school could partner together, and the students in the county without a virtual option could use that county's virtual school. So that passed, and that would depend on basically an MOU between the two counties for how that would work and how credits would work. There some interesting things with social studies standards, and I think this is going to be something to watch, and maybe Gloria will talk to this a little bit more. One thing that has passed is urging the Standards Committee to include events of the Civil Rights Movement from 1954 to 1968 in the final recommendation of academic standards in social studies for grades 9 through 12. So it urges them to include those. It doesn't require. So that's something to keep an eye on, and also maybe keep an eye on whether there's pushback against that when the time comes. One really good thing that passed is funding for the summer learning programs. So previously, when we were looking at summer learning as a response to COVID, the funding for that summer learning came from ESSER funds, and so that was just 3-year funding. So our legislators have now put in funding for summer learning indefinitely. They also were very interested in making sure that districts have some leeway so that we can adjust that summer learning for whatever grades we feel like need it the most. The problem with that is that by also requiring 3rd grade retention, the grades that need it the most end up being 3rd and 4th grade, and we don't get to provide it for those lower grades. So that's the problem with it. The intent is good, but then when you tack on that 3rd grade retention law, it sort of removes the ability to actually do that. A school voucher program passed this time around. It's the pilot program that has been in effect for a while in Memphis and Nashville. That was supposed to be a pilot program. It has been in litigation for some time, and that litigation has ended right now. And what happened this time is that Hamilton County, Senator Gardenhire from Hamilton County wanted to add Hamilton County into that. As he was adding that, some representatives from Knox County also decided to tag on and try to add Knox County as well. And basically the way Knox County ended up not being in it is that Knox County senators have a better understanding of how the people feel about it. And so they were very concerned because they understand that over 80% of our population is not in favor of this kind of school voucher. Some of our representatives tend to send out more broadly worded surveys that say people want school choice, and they translate that into the vouchers. But thankfully, our senators understand that that is not the case, that folks do understand the difference and that they are not for vouchers. And so Knox County was pulled back out of that. And so that's good for Knox, but bad for Hamilton because it did still pass for Chattanooga. There are some bills that have passed for teacher licensure costs so that folks can get reimbursed for some of the costs of taking additional tests. So if I were certified in an area that's not a high need, and I went and took a praxis test to get certified in an area where there is a high need, I might be reimbursed for that. There was some good movement toward open meetings. It requires governing bodies to make agendas of meetings and supplemental meeting documents available to the public at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. So that will end an issue of having documents show up that are not attached to the agenda until the last minute or attached just the night before or something like that. So all governing bodies are now required to have those documents on that agenda at least 48 hours in advance. There is a new exemption from certification requirements for elementary PE, and that sounds very concerning, but it is only in cases where there is absolutely no certified employee that can be found. So the superintendent has to make a request of the Department of Education for a waiver, and then they would go through their board rules and they would be able to teach phys ed if there is no other candidate available at all. And I've talked with some principals today who had that kind of issue. We have some phys ed teachers right now who are completing certifications. So I think that must be a statewide issue that folks are having trouble finding certified phys ed teachers specifically for elementary school. We've had a lot of threats to schools lately, and one of the things that they added is that a threat of violence is a zero tolerance issue now. And there was a great lot of feeling that that alone will be a deterrent. So far, I don't really see that. So that's something to keep an eye on. The superintendent does have the ability to override that in cases where it's the kind of thing where it's a young person just talking or someone doesn't understand what they're saying, that kind of thing. So it would have to be a credible threat. It would have to go through threat assessment, that kind of thing, before it would reach a level of zero tolerance in most cases. So are there other things that people want to hear about? Other things you want to know?
Yeah, so if you want to drop your questions in the chat, we'll try to uplift a few questions. If we don't get to your question, we'll try to direct you to where to get the answer as soon as possible. And if you want to drop your questions in the chat, we can highlight those. I see one that says, is it true that there's no transportation money in regard to summer camps?
I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I think some of the money for the summer camp can be put into the transportation. I know that's true with the ESSER money. I can't say for sure. Maybe Gloria will know that answer.
All right, someone says, is there a place where we can find out what the status of the social studies standards review process is?
I think watching the State Board of Ed would be the place to look for that, and the Department of Ed for when that review process comes up, and I'll try to keep the group informed.
All right, and then Candace asks, let's see, what do you think is the big thing on the horizon for next year?
I think we'll still be looking at school vouchers. I think third grade retention is going to still be an issue. And they have also promised to look at math next as a retention issue. I say promised, not in a good way, but yes, so they've said math, we're going to tackle math next. So I expect that to be just as bad as the reading part was. So I think we will still be looking at a lot of third grade retention issues and trying to get that turned around.
That's good. And we'll just take these last two questions here. So someone said White's bill passed committee regarding the 3rd and 4th grade retention law. What can we do to get a better one?
Just keep calling your legislators. just keep calling.
Keep organizing too. Yeah. All right.
When-
And
anytime I see anybody on social media fussing about it, I tag in a link to all the legislators so they can contact those folks.
all right. And then this last question here is, what do you see are the major impacts of the new TISA funding formula? And I know that's a big question, but kind of what do you think are the key highlights there?
I don't think we know yet. And I think that's the biggest issue. Our finance departments aren't sure yet. Nobody is really sure, because basically it was a cut and paste of BEP renamed, except now we don't know what the pieces are. So basically it's just a lack of transparency. It's the same thing we had, but now you can't tell where any of the money is.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. And you said you were going to drop some stuff in the chat for us to look at. So I encourage everyone to get those and put them in your browser somewhere so you can save them. And we will.
And they're new, so don't hesitate to email me. Go ahead. Any other questions? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we will pass it over to Representative Gloria Johnson to kind of get her input from that side of things. So take it away, Gloria. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Okay, there we go. Hey, everybody. And one thing I want to answer, Jennifer asked about, maybe I'll know. I don't know about transportation. It's supposed to be included. I think that what we should do if we find out that it's not included is go back to the argument during the special session that passed this bill, where Lamberth said over and over and over, he will make sure that transportation is paid for. We need to clip that video and we need to play it all over social media non-stop, because I asked the question several times and so did others, and he said over and over again, as long as he was there, transportation would be paid for. So we need to hold them to it. I think somebody wanted me to talk about how all of this relates to privatization and everything that we have done. And since I was elected in 2012, was about leading to this moment of privatizing all of our public schools. You know, the first thing was taking away a teacher's seat at the table, taking away their rights to collective bargaining. And then we have the teacher evaluations and the standardized testing. And all of these things are ways to play with the numbers, play with test scores, and make public schools look bad. And we have heard for all these years that I've been up there, we have heard over and over again that only 33% of Tennessee students can read on third grade level. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. I have tried over and over to get them to listen, but when the Board of Ed is spouting the same lie and everyone else is, it's hard to get that message across. And it did come across in some of their own guests this past session. That was the one good thing, I think, to a degree, that came out of it. They realized that they were not even looking. First of all, the TCAP test is not a literacy test, and it doesn't give you a reading level. And they had the 50% average, right in the middle, average third grader, not even in proficient. And so they had them in below proficient. They weren't including every kid that was average for the third grade in the proficient or above proficient. They were in the below proficient. So we're really more at 50 or 60% of kids can read on grade level. However, that's not what we're saying. And some people got the message on that. Not everybody, but I think from this day forward, if we use that and we continue to stress that, we can change that talking point and get rid of it and literally throw it in the trash where it needs to go, because it's a disservice to our teachers and to our kids. And all of these things, these tests and the teacher evaluations, and all of those things were designed specifically to make public schools look bad. Why were we trying to make public schools look bad? So we could say we must have charters and vouchers to save the world. And all of the things they did for the first few years were all about teachers bad. Now it's, teachers are bad. Teachers are grooming, and they're teaching these horrible books, and they're teaching our kids to be transgender, just lunacy, stuff like that. And it's all about making public schools look bad, because the goal of privatizing our public education reaches to the goal of destroying democracy. Our public schools are the bedrock of democracy, and they don't like democracy. They've actually said that on the House floor. And so destroying public ed and privatizing public ed and teaching the curriculum that you want kids to know and not teaching kids to be thinkers is going to create the worker bees that they want. And I mean, it's really, really clear. And what we have to do, what is critical, is that we have to hold legislators' feet to the fire. My Knox County buddies on this call all know that when the voucher vote first happened, they held the board open, they bribed a bunch of legislators to flip their votes, and every single Knoxville legislator who was not a Democrat said, well, I only voted for it because we took Knox County out. They acted like, ooh, we took Knox County out. No, you didn't. Knox County was not included and wasn't going to be at that point in time, because they knew they weren't going to get the statewide voucher program. So they said, oh, well, the reason we voted for it was because we took Knox County out. Well, gosh, explain to me why, when they tried to expand it, those exact same people who said they only voted because they took Knox County out were the ones asking the sponsor to put Knox County in. Every single Knoxville Republican requested that Knox County be included in the vouchers. Every single one. They all need to be called to account for that. And that needs to start happening now that we've all come back to our district, and you all can meet with everybody in their districts, but their feet need to be held to the fire. They have to be, or they're going to do it again and again and again. And we can't let them get by with this message. The idea of TISA is to destroy public education again, because it's going to funnel so much money to the charter schools and to the private schools. They will, right now, private school is one number. It's going to change. Trust me, I bet next session, we will see a thing that says, well, we're going to use TISA funding for private schools too. Guarantee it. And we have let one Hillsdale got their foot in the door. One of the Hillsdale schools got through. And that is just, it's going to open the way for all the rest of them. And it should be horrifying to everyone that one of those Hillsdale schools got through. And so now it's just a matter of time. And understand this, there's nothing to prevent current charter schools from switching to the Hillsdale charter operator or curriculum. And that's going to be horrifying to our school systems without question. And so, yes, it was Rutherford who let those Hillsdale folks in. Everyone else turned them down and pushed back. And it's just really unfortunate that one of them got through. And so, again, that's what all of this has been leading to. But what we have to do is be vigilant and be steadfast about pointing out over and over. They offer charters and vouchers. Well, this fixes the problem of all the failure in our public schools. Well, the reality is there are far more failing charter schools than there are failing public schools. And we also know that not a single state has voucher students performing better than their public school peers, not one. And typically in math, they're performing worse. We have to continue to talk about that. When they say, oh, well, parents should have a choice, they should be able to go to a better school. Well, you're not sending them to a better school. You're sending them to the schools that are in the bottom 5 and 10% in the state. Charter schools are in the bottom 5 and 10%, except for 5 of them. Only 5 of them go above 20%. So let's be honest about where these charter schools are. And it is all to erode democracy, because we see in our legislature an erosion of democracy. And these people, they might, we have to do better when they say, I support teachers and I support public education. No, they don't. Not if they voted for any of these bills. Not if they voted for a teacher's raise that took away their ability to have their union dues direct deposited. I mean, and by the time we're in 27, I'm pretty sure $50,000 will still be less than 10 years ago when you take into consideration the cost of living. It sounds like a lot right now, but in 27, I think we're still going to be down below. And so we have got to be serious. One of the things is, man, when legislators came back after session before last, after the 3rd grade retention bill, parents, teachers, everybody got on them and said, you have to fix this. This is horrible. This is terrible. And man, those legislators came back going, God, they are pissed. We have to get to work. And you had people like Ron Travis and some other folks writing a bill to just repeal the whole thing. Well, as we go through session and he brings in more of the Jeb Bush people and more of the privatizers and more of the pro-charter folks and puts his propaganda out there of this 3rd grade retention will save us, because the Excel and Ed people said, oh, we've got data that shows this saves us. Promised to send me that data, and guess what? I never got it. Never received that data, because you know what? It doesn't exist. 3rd grade retention is a stupid idea, and everybody knows that. And so we have to hold them accountable. We have to, that $125 billion raise is not even 2%. It's still going to make teachers make less than they did 10 years ago. That's just a fact. So they say these big numbers, and the person at home goes, wow, 125 million, that's a lot of money. And but divided by the number of teachers, it's not much money at all. And so it sounds big to people, but we have to break it down to what it is and let them know. And just like they say, oh, we gave this hundreds of $1 million tax breaks to citizens. They gave us 3 months off of groceries. That's $15 a month. They gave us a $45 a year tax break for 1 year. Sounds big when you say it all together, but it's just not. And we have to be super concerned about this new commissioner, y'all, because at least Penny had a day or two in the classroom. This woman doesn't even know what a classroom looks like. All she knows is privatization policy. That's all she knows. He put a lobbyist in charge of the Department of Education. My gosh, we are in trouble, folks, and it is only going to get worse. And we have got to be on them. We have to stay there. Parents have to, it's going to be a lot of work, but we have to be there en masse, because look how quickly they forgot about fixing that 3rd grade retention. They just forgot about it. So we've got to be there every day in every committee, and we've got to show up in numbers whenever we can, because that's the only way we're going to stop them.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for that insight and expressing the urgency that is with these issues, but also too that we hold this responsibility of holding our legislators accountable and continuing to push them, even where we might not get those wins that we want, continuing that conversation forward. So thank you so much for putting that into perspective for us, and for taking the time to be with us tonight. And speaking of the charter fight and all that movement going on in Rutherford County, I want to pass it over to Steffi and Joy to talk about the experience they've had rallying around this issue. And if you guys have questions, please put those in the chat, and we will make sure that we direct those along where they need to go. But otherwise, I'll pass it over to Steffi and Joy.
All right. Hi, I'm Steffi Outlaw. I'm a teacher at Clarksville, Montgomery County. I'm also president-elect of the Clarksville Montgomery County Education Association. We did have a beacon of hope this year. Our school board did vote down American Classic that tried to come in here for a second time. And, you know, and I have to call out Jimmy Garland because he's on our school board and he's also in this meeting. So I was very pleased to see him here. But they did vote down the charter school, and it was a 6-1 vote. Only one member actually voted in favor of the charter school. It would have been way more devastating had the election went differently this past election cycle, because they did come for 3 of our members, and we actually won that and kept those 3 on the board. So it did, you know, it did go our way. Another beacon of hope is the fact that, you know, Rosa, Monica Meek, she's on here as well. They got everybody together, all of us from, you know, different organizations, different entities. We started meeting, we started talking, we started texting, and we all came together from, you know, the NAACP, Clarksville Indivisible, the Teachers Association. I'm probably forgetting a few, but even non-affiliates. We came together, Democratic Party, and we started to meet, we started to organize, and we were showing up at the school board meetings. We had our signs. I had the best sign and I didn't even make it. It was ACAM is a scam. So, and I had at least 3 people tell me it was the best sign. So I'm going to frame it, I think. But anyway, we showed up at the meetings, and I was very proud, because the first time that they tried in our district, there wasn't a lot of us. They had a lot of supporters that would show up, and then they would write speeches for their kids to get up there and talk. And so this time we got it together and we showed up in full force, and they didn't have very many supporters. But our school district as well was not in favor of them. They recommended to not, you know, not approve that charter school, and for the very same reasons that all of us, you know, didn't want to approve it. And I think, you know, one main reason tells the whole story is the fact that they said that they were going to, their goal was to have 40% minorities in that school, but that school was going to be set in a part of Clarksville, Montgomery County that was 85% white. And I think 185% above the median socioeconomic level. And so how are you going, and no transportation, of course, was going to be provided. So how are you going to get 40% minorities and students of lower socioeconomic levels to that school when it's sitting way over there in the southeastern corner of Clarksville, Montgomery County? There's just, that tells the whole story right there in my eyes. They were never going to cater to the students that they said they were going to. Or they would just didn't know our county very well. But I don't think that was the reason. The school board member that voted in favor of it, you know, that's where he lives. So, but anyway, I digress. But I was really proud of how we came together, of the momentum we have, and moving forward, I want to keep that momentum. And you know, we have other fights that we're going to engage in, other fights that we're going to organize around. So we're all like-minded people, and I think we have a really good thing going in Clarksville, Montgomery County. It makes me excited. Makes me very excited. A couple of years ago, I thought, oh, we're doomed. We're going to get charters. We're doomed, and I didn't have a very good feeling. But this year renewed my hope, and I really hope that I really hope we keep the momentum, and I hope it grows. I think there was a couple other things I wanted to say, but I can't remember them right now. Oh, as of yesterday, there was no appeals process put in place. I mean, there was no appeals put in place. So I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping, but you know, that's all I can do. All right, I'll pass it to Joy before I take up all of our time.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Well, if your sign was ACAM as a scam, I guess ours has to be ACAR as a SCAR, because Rutherford approved the charter, unfortunately. one of the good things that came out of this past couple months, I guess, was that we had some new connections with a group called Safe RCS, which is a Facebook group that started during all of the masking controversy to try and help keep kids and staff in the schools safe. And they have maintained an active group of over 1,300 people on their Facebook group. So it was good to have their leadership and really plugged in people participating. One of the other things I think that worked well was we used the steps and action items that Montgomery County was using. And, this is the benefits of a statewide organizing group, because we can piggyback on what other groups are doing, and we don't have to recreate the wheel. We have a very small charter of SOCM here in Rutherford County. So with limited resources, we were able to still look like we knew what we were doing. But so it was good to get some help coming and joining in these statewide meetings as we were organizing, and good to connect with that other group. And they are really connected now moving forward for what we can do next. Same story as the other counties here. We were the survey that they did was over 72% against the charter, and the review committee recommendation was even stronger against it than last year. But the school board member who served on the review committee, because the committee was not allowed to present its findings at the meeting, he just said, well, I know what they said, but I'm going to vote for it. And then they voted 5-2 for the charter school. So that, as far as I know, they don't have land, but the board chair indicated it was supposed to come into her area. Surprise. So we're planning a public interest meeting in the area. We're going to try to get it scheduled in that northern sector of Rutherford County so we can involve families from that area more easily. And we'll just go from there and keep encouraging folks to plug into these statewide informational meetings and our local chapter.
Great. Thank you so much, Steffi and Joy, for sharing your experiences, and thank you for the work that you're doing in your communities. That's informing some of the work that we can maybe apply as those fights come to us. So as we think about all this stuff that's happening, I'm sure everyone's brains are spinning. I know that mine is a little bit with all these fires that we've got to put out. I'm going to pass it over to Dustin, who's going to kind of ground us in what can we do? What are our next steps? So he's going to kind of lead the way in that conversation, and hopefully you'll walk away with extra hope and some feet behind that hope.
Thanks, Liv. Hi, I'm Dustin Park. I'm in Blount County. I am going to talk about next steps, but before we do that, I want to kind of recap how we got to where we are. And this has kind of been a through line through the whole evening. I think a lot of us have found hope in the people we have brought in through the third grade retention fight. And as Gloria mentioned too, there's a lot of passion that has been brought to that fight that we want to try to harness and carry forward into the next session. So some of the things that we learned from that are that organizing on a local level is very effective, and doing that by talking to parents and administrators and teachers and talking to people and putting it in terms where it is really affecting their lives really engages them, obviously. So when you talk to a third grade parent and you spell out how that law is going to affect them, and you can see the light bulb go off, and then they want to act on that, obviously. So I think going forward, when we talk about these privatization efforts and charters and vouchers and attacks on public schools, it's putting them in real terms about how they are going to affect these people's schools. Teachers, administrators, et cetera, tend to know that because they're in it. I found that it tends to be more about how we as organizers and the public can help them advocate for their public schools. But I think that going forward, we're going to have these deep listening campaigns that we're going to give the dates here at the end. And that is the biggest part of engaging people, I think, between now and the beginning of the next session. And that is by going out into our communities with these pods that we have begun creating and talking and listening to as many people as possible, that being parents and teachers and administrators and school board members. And going back to what Lance said and what we kind of have talked about, it's starting from a place of being proactive and being positive and saying, not saying what's wrong, what is wrong in your school, what are the attacks on your school, but saying, what do you need? Like in a perfect world, what would make your school better? And starting to work with that. That was something that was really eye-opening on the third grade retention fight, was that when I first started, it was, how do we fight this? How do we change it? And then we got to the point where we were like, well, you know what? What are things that we can actually put in place that will help kids read better? And, you know, and I came to find that I talked to reading specialists and they were like, put more reading specialists in the classrooms from K through 2. And that was something that started to, I saw it work its way into the legislature, and you started seeing people talk about that in the education committee. So that was a narrative that began, that was actually something that's helpful. And I know that they're doing bridge classrooms in certain classes between kindergarten and first. And that's being spent with ESSER money now, but those are things that are positive things we can bring to our legislators and say, hey, if you really do believe in public education and want to help these kids, then here's something that we can put in place that really will support them. But beyond that, I think what's really important is to build these relationships through this deep listening with the people in your community, because then when we get to the point where the session starts, we can go back to these people because the relationship has been established. You know, we have a little bit of time now to actually get to know our local school board members, our local teachers. And that is something that personally, before I started this work with SOCM, I have been doing as an advocate for kids with disabilities. And I learned early on that the best way to get things done is to create relationships with people first and establish a goodwill with them. And then going forward, you'll be able to work together much more easily than coming at them with fire and brimstone out of nowhere. So I think that the local issues that we're going to be focusing on are keeping an eye on local budgets, holding county commissions and city councils accountable for funding schools in an equitable manner, and doing so for all students. We're going to keep an eye on the appeals process for third grade retention and how that's working. One of the things that I've already started to engage administrators about is, you know, even the third grade retention law this year is going to be unchanged. The changes that they put in place in this last session don't take effect until the 23-24 school year. So, or I'm sorry, the following year. So we're going to get a real picture of the effect of that law this year. So I would encourage people to try to get as much data from your school systems as you can, so that we can have hard numbers about how this is affecting our schools. And then the third thing is something we've talked about too, are these charter fights. We have one coming up in Blount County too. There's already a Hillsdale-backed charter school that's meeting with school board members. There's people organizing to oust the few school board members that are against charter schools. So it's full speed ahead on that front. And I'm really, I think people have said while Steffi and Joy were talking, that they have laid out a really great playbook for us, and they are an indispensable resource, I think, for all of us across the state to really learn how we can, you know, fight these charter schools all over the place. All right, so our ask for going forward is that people continue to connect in these pods. I think the link had been put in there again, if you want to throw it in there. So basically, for those who weren't here for the last meeting, the idea is that there are some of us sprinkled throughout the state that are starting to form little pods that will then go out into our communities. This is pretty much by county, but we'll come up with a strategy. We'll go to our deep listening sessions, and we will fan out, and we will talk and listen and organize. So that's one. Two, the listening sessions. So right now, the tentative dates are June 17th in Middle Tennessee. Locations are to be determined on this, right? Okay, so yeah, June 17th in Middle Tennessee, and then June 24th in East Tennessee. We do know that's going to be in Athens. We don't know the exact location yet. So those will be trainings where people learn how to do this deep listening and how to utilize that to go out and organize people and build local action again, supporting public schools. Liv is also going to share that link tree again that she shared at the beginning about resources with meetings and events and current campaign actions. And then for those who are not part of SOCM, please join SOCM. We're going to put a link in there too, so that you can officially join this great organization. And that's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is for Representative Johnson. Do these legislature know exactly what effect a public charter school will have on each community once they become a part of the local funding base?
I don't know if they really understand that. We've tried to tell them that. We talk about that on the House floor. We talk about that in committee. And it's not even just the cost to that community or that county that has one. Every single one that opened depletes the entire state allocations. So even if you don't have a charter school, others opening them reduces your funding. That's just a fact. And we have said it over and over, but they're not listening.
The reason why I asked that question is because I've been briefed that once a public charter school is allowed in the community, that after the first $50,000, $50 million or whatever that the governor is going to pay for the charter school, that's all the state going to pay. Everything else is going to have to come out of the general operating fund. And I've also been told that once the law has been written that once the charter school is a part of the community, they get first choice of the dollars. So that means that public charter schools, like you say, public charter schools is only to tear down education as we know it and to try to resegregate the school system like we knew it. But the bottom line is, as a school board member for Montgomery County, I can't stand for that. And I really appreciate the hard work that you guys are doing. But there's a lot of education that need to be done at the legislative level, as well as the community level in all of our communities, especially when you have a charter school that's going to be coming at you. You need to know what it's going to mean if they get in. And like you mentioned, the Republicans, their goal during the last election here was to get 3 blacks off the school board because they knew that we would not go for a public charter school. But they lost because we had the community. And we didn't give up our position as a citizen of this nation. Some people ask me, why did you run as a Democrat? Well, I am a Democrat. And I'm going to run as a Democrat. Why? Because if I run any other way, then I'd be lying to you. And I'm not going to lie to anybody to stay in the seat. There's a lot of things that I want to do, but as Jennifer, as she would be able to tell you, that as a school board member, your hands are tied. There's things that you can't do because it'll get back to your district. So there are some things that I have to move aside in order to be able to do some of the things that I don't do. But I really appreciate this group. I really appreciate what you're doing. There's a lot of stuff that we need to make sure that the parents know. Like you say, public charter schools, they are not what people say they are. They are going at the counties where the money is, people. They're going at your money. They want your money. They don't want to educate your children. They want your money.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and expressing the urgency. And I've heard a lot tonight, the beginnings of some really great conversations and moving us to action. So please click on that link tree and click on that link to get connected. We're calling them pods, these cohorts of people who want to do this work with you. It's really hard to do this by yourself. You've got people in this chat in your area that want to do this work. So connect, click that link, and that will send an email to me and we will get you connected with those folks. Share that link tree, share those resources, and we're just going to continue this work together. And hopefully we'll see you at those deep listening trainings so that you can learn how to have these conversations effectively in your community. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. Like we said, if you have any questions, we'll forward those to the right people and get back with you as soon as possible. And thank you again to our guest speakers who came on tonight and our leaders that are on the ground doing great work. And thank you to all of you for showing up. So, all right.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
And if the
Thank you.
facilitation team, if y'all want to hang on for just two quick minutes.